Hey, everybody out there. Got something sweet for you today. As you can tell, if you're looking at me a little bit, you can tell it's kind of hot out here in my shop today. And we're starting to enter into those first hot days of summertime. You know, it's mid-June and starting to warm up outside. I'm going to talk about one of my most favorite baits as we go into early summer that will catch you the biggest fish in the lake. That's an old Balsa bee. Now I'm talking about the old Bagley's Balsa bees, and I have an affinity for the old plugs, the old brass hardware, but I also like, these are the Dominican made, I guess you call them, but they're the newer ones, but not newer. They're 80s models still. I love these old baits, and there's something special about these things that's kind of a lost thing in the fishing world today, is I enjoy having to buy a handful of baits, 2 or 3 different ones, working through them to find that one. As you can tell, this one right here is that one. Used to, you'd buy a lot of lures. You might buy 5 or 6 of these old Balsa bees, but there was one of them. One out of that 5 would so far outproduce, it would perform so much better. A fish would swim halfway across the cove to eat that bait, where you could throw the other ones and never get a bite. David Fritz ran into that on them old wooden poes. It's a characteristic with a wooden bait. Some of these baits were kind of, the quality control was a little iffy. The bills would be all different. But every now and then you get one that was unbelievable. I enjoy that process. I remember going back when they used to put salt crawls and worms in the little tubs, and you'd go in the tackle store. I'd go in there and say a Jean LaRue salt crawl. I wanted one that looked a certain way with a certain amount of fleck in it, and I'd dig through that whole bowl and pick out the 10 or 15 in there that were exactly like I wanted them to be. It kind of goes the same way with these baits. You go through and you're picking through them and you buy the ones you think are going to work right. Nowadays I shop online and I try to buy the ones that I know are going to work. I still got boxes full of them that they're never going to work, but that's okay too, because when you find that special one, you have something special. See, this time of year, it starts really getting hot. All those fish, they've been shallow. They're wrapping up on the post-spawn thing. They've been up in that shallow cover, but now they're beginning to disperse out into the lake. Most of our lakes are beginning to start falling a little bit right now. And you can take a Balsa bee, 2 or 3, shallow bill for the most part, but I've also done extremely well on some of these old deep bills around some of this top cover as well, just depending on the depth. And go to the back of these creek arms or your river arms and start looking for isolated wood cover on big flats, or an isolated, whatever the only isolated piece of cover is. The lake's starting to come down, the water's getting hot. And this is not something you do in the morning. You wait till that sun gets up high. You wait till it gets so hot you can't hardly stand it. You tie you on one of these Balsa bees and you just start beating the crap out of that wood. You just make every throw you can, run that lure into that piece of wood over and over and over again. I assure you there's a big bass laying there. He's left that shallow water. He's went to the first cute piece of cover. He's just hanging out there to kind of wait to move on out for summer. And this is the bait that catches them. I've caught a big stringer of bass throwing a Balsa bee 2 or 3 around shallow logs and wood in the early summer. It's a tournament winning technique. It's one that you're not going to catch lots of fish, but when you catch one, it's going to be a big one. And you need this bait, a wooden plug. There's something special about wood, fishing wood. See, these plugs are extremely buoyant. And you can beat them through that old wood and you can drive it down into a crack, give it a little slack, it'll float up, it'll start diving again. It'll float up and start diving again. You can hit a piece of wood hard, it'll deflect, roll up on its side like this and start back down. You want to catch a big one, you just roll that over a limb about 3 times like that. He's going to go crazy and get it. He can't stand it. Chartreuse blackback. A white with a blackback's another really good one. I normally throw the fatter plugs like the Balsa bee 2 or 3. These are both 3s. But another bait I do extremely well if you're fishing river systems this time of year, early June, is the Killer Bee. So this is a Killer Bee 3. This old crawfish pattern works extremely well. No Killer Bee 1, my most favorite river bait in the summer of anything I've ever thrown. Just Fire Tiger, Chartreuse Blackback, little short round lip, or the next size deeper are both excellent. Just bang this thing into everything you come across, rock, limbs, pylons, whatever. It will catch them. But the erraticness and the buoyancy of the balsa makes them great. Another great one, you know, I throw the deep bell some. This is an old Balsa B1. There's times that wood's a little bit deeper. Just step up to this bait, use heavy line. 17, 20, 25 pound test. I've taken 25 pound tests with a Balsa B3 fishing a little bit deeper timber and logs in the early June and had some fantastic tournaments. The bait won't dive as deep and you can really get that deep bill and deflect it around those logs and wood and really catch some big bass. Heavy line, I use a medium rod. I don't use the normal cranking rods that I would use like normally crankbait, like soft fiberglass rods. I use a medium rod. I want something with some backbone in it. I use a 6:4 to 1 gear ratio reel. I'm using 17 to 25 pound test line. You're going to need something that when you put this big plug down into that wood and a big bass gets on it, you're going to have to be able to bring him out. And if you use one of those soft glass rods, trust me, I've been here. It's going to load up, you're going to hook up, and he's going to go right down into that cover and you can't get him out. Use a heavier rod, use heavier hooks, a heavier style hook with this top bait. You're going to need to power those fish out of that cover, and they're big, they're mean. They don't want to come out of there. You need a little heavier tackle for this technique. But I will tell you, early June through the month of June really is the time to be doing this. I remember Doug Garrett winning the Redman All-American. I was there at that tournament. He won it on a Balsa B2, just like this one right here. Another one of my most favorite baits of all time. Just in mid-June, just banging that thing around logs in 6-8 feet of water, cranking it down in the forks of those logs. You know, Doug made I'll tell you a tip on that is we tend to want to pull up to a log and look at it and cast down it so that we're not hitting in the forks, that we flow away from the forks of the log and we deflect that bait off because you're not going to hang up as bad. Doug's process was, if you got a log like this laying here, instead of casting about like this and casting about like this, go the opposite direction. So the end of the log sticking up down here, come along, run that bait right up in the fork of that log and then let it come back, work it back out and go. Work it down the sides where it's getting under, the fish are hanging out here in the shade. If you can get that bait to get underneath there and bang around, you'll catch that big fish. Open my eyes something, listen to Doug Garrett talk about that. And nowadays I approach those logs a little different. And you just got to be patient. Ease that, fish it hard into there, but then back it. These baits will just back right out of timber and you can go again with it. The buoyancy of that balsa wood really works. It's special. Again, there's something special. I know there's a lot of great balsa wood plug makers out there, and I use a lot of Ira Carroll's baits. He makes a perfect bait. They're wonderful. But there is something special about some of these old Balsa B plugs. Sorting through them, buying them, getting them out on the water, testing them out, seeing what they'll do till you find that one that you go, that's the one right there. And then go use it. There's something special about that. Don't lose sight of that. It's one of the cool things in fishing. If you don't have any of these or some brand, you need to get some. Learn how to throw them. They will catch you the biggest bass of summer. And it will be exciting when he's all wrapped up in that log over there in 3 or 4 feet of water. And it's you and him. It's going to be good. Been there. I'm going to get out and do a little bit of that myself over the next few weeks. Hope that helps you. And we'll catch you next time.